That's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Macron of France in that joint press statement after a meeting, and the Prime Minister being awarded the Legion of France award, which he dedicated to India, and every Indian spoke about all the achievements that India has made and the strategic partnership that has developed between the two nations. Strategic dialogue, the purchase of Rafale, also the conversation on Scorpion deal expected to take place now. And of course, it's been a jam-packed visit for the Prime Minister after being the chief guest at the Bastille Day parade, the flypast of the Rafales. It was pomp and grandeur that we saw the Prime Minister being really given there in Paris earlier today. Following this, of course, the Prime Minister also has a meeting with the CEOs. He's met with a few CEOs before this, the global CEO of fashion brand Chanel and other CEOs are making a beeline to meet with the Prime Minister, expecting to look at India as a market and to do business with India. And that is the picture of the Prime Minister being welcomed by President Macron at the headquarters. Joining me tonight, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author. What do you think, Dr. Anand Ranganathan? The visit to Paris, the visit to the United States before this, on his return, last time it was Egypt, this time it's going to be the UAE. Is there a message the Prime Minister is trying to send back home?
I think the message is that soon all the world leaders are going to stop calling him, because every time he goes abroad, he becomes the most popular leader around the world. I think now his popularity ratings are, I think, 78%, which is higher than any other world leader. So no, but I mean, to be serious, I think this is absolutely fantastic. On multiple levels, as the Prime Minister said, that the foundation for Indo-French relationship are the defense ties. And mind you, Navika, it's been 4 years and we haven't heard even a single apology from the opposition. I'm not even talking about Rahul Gandhi. I'm talking about the entire opposition for all the canards that they spread about Rafale deal. And now it has been actually sanctified even more than it was 4 years ago. Where is the apology? Where is the apology to the Supreme Court? Where is the apology of all those supposed editors who truncated a version of the then defense minister's letter to purport that there was a scam that was taking place? So nobody is accountable. You can sling as much mud as you want on the Prime Minister. This is the issue. But to come back to this, I think this is taking Indo-France relationships to a completely another level. So I definitely welcome it wholeheartedly.
Well, also joining me tonight, Dr. Swasti Rao, Associate Fellow at the Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies. Dr. Rao, I want to ask you, what do you think about brand Modi on the global stage today after this visit, which is currently on to France and United States before that, and over the last 9 years? Is there a definitive foreign policy that the Prime Minister has pushed? And is there a specific defense and strategic arrangement that he's made with various powers of the world as far as India's own geopolitical situation is concerned?
A very good evening to you, Navika. Good evening, Dr. Ranganathan. It's a pleasure to share this debate with you. So a couple of things. The first thing is that I've been maintaining for a while that it had been happening with how the Prime Minister was steering our foreign policy, but the war in Ukraine kind of brought it, to the surface for many of us to see and notice and analyze, which is that India is truly living its intersectional global moment. So no matter which department you pick up, which area you pick up, whether it's defense cooperation, which is a post-mercantilist defense cooperation, right? We are getting all these big powers now to share their transfer of technology, technology and, get into joint venture, something which was not very easy earlier. So whether you pick up that or whether you pick up something like this gracious, glorious launch of the Chandrayaan-3 that we just had, or if you pick up the people-to-people contact, or, becoming the voice of the global South. So you pick up any area and you see India doing, literally nailing it, for lack of a better term. Now, that's one. So I look at it in terms of a truly intersectional global movement for India. Now, particularly with reference to what you said, whether it's the Prime Minister's private or personal style that really adds to it, well, of course it does, because if you've noticed, I think there are a couple of things that need to be mentioned here, especially with regard to France. Of course, we share a very, very special relationship with France. We are discussing it today. What we are seeing today is something that was, etched in stone about 25 years ago in 1998. But our cooperation goes even further back. It started in 1974 when the first time we tested the nuclear weapons, and then the US that was supporting us for the Tarapur nuclear power plant kind of withdrew its support, and then France stepped up its support. And the first military deal that we had with France then was in 82 with 40 Mirage fighters. And now, of course, we see all the Rafales coming in, etc. So what you definitely see is that the Prime Minister, wherever he goes, whether he went to the US or whether he goes to France, apart from what we expect from him, which is the big ticket announcements about the defense cooperation, etc., you always hear much more than what you had expected. So for instance, this entire introduction of the UPI payment system, this thing of trying to get, Macron said about giving visas for students who are studying there long enough, this entire people-to-people contact, and also reviving the trilateral mechanism in the Indo-Pacific, trying to get back France and Australia, who had kind of fallen out after the very controversial AUKUS deal. And that trilateral mechanism is working again. And then the second trilateral mechanism is working very well, which is the India, France, and UAE one. And we all know that while coming back, the Prime Minister is going to go to UAE as well. So all I'm saying is that perhaps there's one thing where I would like to hear better news slowly and steadily, which is about bettering our economic ties, because I guess that is one thing where I feel that the India-France relationship has not been able to reach or harness its true potential, because otherwise we're doing so wonderfully well everywhere. So I would perhaps like to see more, progress being made there. And as the Prime Minister just mentioned in his address, that he would be meeting, there would be a meeting of the CEOs. So I definitely expect, better announcements to be made there as well.
Well, we'll be looking forward to those. Also joining me tonight, Saurabh Shukla, founder of News Mobile, and an old colleague. Saurabh Shukla, once again, the Prime Minister's the trailblazing that he normally does is happening right now in France. And what do you see as the takeaways with the fly past, with the kind of honors the Prime Minister's been given, the kind of reception he's been given, and the strategic partnership? Is this only about buying and selling of Scorpene and Rafales, as many in the opposition would want to look at? Or do you think India's poised to make a
Navika,
big leap?
I would say this is a strategic power play by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Europe after a big one in the US. So this is India's moment to reclaim its place as not only as the leader of Global South, but as also as a dominant world leader whom everybody is embracing. This is India's moment, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is leading it brilliantly. If you see, it's not about anybody who will be naive to think that this is only about defense purchases or economic deals. This is the other way around. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when it comes to UPI, this is India's financial might which is coming to the fore. When he talks about soft power, when he's encouraging Indian diaspora to get more tourists to India, this is India's economy which is getting boosted. It is, in diplomacy, in foreign policy, it's always about mutual interest. It's about India's mutual interest coinciding with the world, with France. The case in point, the French president realizes India's global might today, and India and France have had global convergence for a long time now. But even better, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the helm, because they realize that the world is now seeking to quote the Prime Minister in a new India. Navika, every Indian today should be proud of the way, the honor which India is getting, India's Prime Minister is getting in France, or it was in the US, where we obviously both were reporting it regularly. But I can tell you that this is a moment for pride for every Indian today, and everybody who's watching.
Absolutely, and joining us tonight is also Mr. Kanwal Sibal, our old favorite. Thank you very much for joining me, Mr. Kanwal Sibal. And I believe you're in Paris, all dressed to go for the state banquet. And what do you expect? To be the strategic importance of this meeting between the French President and Prime Minister Modi?
Well, the first is that President Macron has shown very visibly a very high regard for our Prime Minister. Now, I don't want to limit only to personalities, but there is a meaning behind it. There's a message behind it. The manner in which he has embraced our Prime Minister twice during the parade and now again at the Elysee, it is sending a message that India is important, Modi as Prime Minister is important, and the French press, which is not very favorable to India, which criticizes, the way the Anglo-Saxon press is criticizing India. It's a message to them also, no matter what you say about backsliding of democracy and minorities, and what the EU Parliament has said about Manipur. The Indian Prime Minister is an honored guest. India is very important. It is a partner of choice for us regionally, globally, in Europe. It's an important message in terms of, but then behind all this, of course, is that France is looking for partnerships, because France has always wanted to carve out some kind of strategic autonomy for itself, despite being a member of the NATO alliance. And it looks at India as a partner which has a similar outlook on international affairs, and therefore the two can combine their strengths in order to build up this kind of strategic autonomy of some major powers as a building block eventually of multipolarity. Remember what Macron said in China, that they don't want to be a vassal of the United States of America. It was seen very badly by the United States, but there was a message behind that. That's one. The other, of course, is the Indian Ocean, the rise of China, the fact that France has territories in both.
And that's the common factor, clearly, the challenges of China, has a subtext that plays on between the newfound prominence that India gets at the high table.
Make one last point, which is that France has always been on the back foot in terms of the challenge that it has from the Anglo-Saxon world. And that is a very important psychological and political factor in reaching out to India, especially as India now is acquiring a profile in terms of leader of the global South. And France also has a colonial past. It has a lot of presence in the global South, and it wants to be able to ride on India's back in some ways.
Absolutely.
In terms of strengthening its.
Absolutely. And when India is at this high table, many look at India as the harbinger of peace in a trouble-torn world, especially with the conflagration, unending conflagration between Russia and Ukraine. Well, leave it at that for the moment. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on the NewsHour tonight. And